Hey, what's up guys, kolst here bringing you this video. At the time of writing this, Fortune Barrens is about a little over a week from coming out. It comes out on March 30th. They've announced about 60 cards. So figure rather than, when I did everything in one video is way too long, so we'll review all the cards that have been announced so far. There's 60 of them, so without further ado, let's get right into it. We have chat here, say hello YouTube chat. And let's get right into it. So the first one, I'm going to go right up the list. Oldest announced cards first. So here we have Shadowhunter Vol'jin. 5 mana 3/6 Battlecry. Swap it with a random one in its owner's hand. That is a weird effect. So there are two different ways you can use it. You can swap a small minion on your own board and then pull out a Proto Drake or something ginormous. Or you can swap a big minion on your opponent's board and hopefully don't pull something bigger than that. So that seems like an extremely, extremely powerful card because it's flexible in both of those situations. What happens if you swap something? Chad, do you know what happens if you swap something when they don't have a minion in hand? Does it just go back to hand and then nothing come out? Or how does that work? Because that would make it even more insane if you could just swap with nothing and then it's just a sap if they have an empty hand. Yeah, I don't know. We don't know the answer to this. I don't know. In any case, this card seems extremely strong. It's a legendary, which is neutral, so this might be the new Silas Darkmoon. We'll see. Probably doesn't have quite the swing potential as Silas Darkmoon. I would guess it's just a sap, but yeah, I don't know. In any case, it seems extremely strong. Moving on next, we have another neutral legendary, Blademaster Samuro. Samuro finally coming to Hearthstone. This is going to be one of the new diamond cards, which is going to be really fancy. I'm probably actually going to get the Tavern Pass to do this, to get this card. Anyway, it's a 4 mana 1/6 rush. I guess we'll talk about the new mechanic right now, Frenzy, which is basically it's a one-time enrage effect. So after it survives damage, you get the effect on the card. You get the Frenzy effect. So it's kind of like a spell burst, but it's triggered by damage. So you can do that on a rush minion. You can do that either by trading into your opponent's minion and having it has to not die. Or you can use this with something like an Og Merchant, potentially. With this card, you wouldn't particularly want to. Well, it depends. But anyway, deal damage equal to this minion's attack to all enemy minions. So if you're playing particularly rogue with something like Cold Blood, and Paladin has a lot of ways to buff as well, this card could be extremely, extremely strong. As is, honestly, just a 4 mana 1/6 rush with an Arcane Explosion attached is actually kind of okay as is. It's not exciting, but it's okay. So, I mean, this card's going to be an alright card in most classes, and if you have the right deck and these other classes, it's going to be absolutely insane. So next we have another new mechanic, which is the rank. I don't know what do they call it, the rank mechanic. But anyway, these cards upgrade when you have more mana. So when you have 5 mana, they go to rank 2, and when you have 10 mana, they go to rank 3. So this one is at rank 1, deal 2 damage to a minion and a random adjacent one. It's interesting. So it's like a cone, except it only goes one way, and you don't know which way it goes. Kind of like a cleave also. So that actually seems extremely good, even at rank 1. A lot of these cards are much weaker at rank 1. This one, and then it upgrades to 3 damage and then 4 damage. So it's 2 damage, 2 mana deal 8 damage when you have 10 mana. Just seems like an extremely powerful card. You can use this, if your opponent only has 2 minions, you can use this to snipe a Scorpid or something. Very relevant, assuming, I guess we don't know if Ashes of Outlands is going to be in, so Scorpid might be out, but yeah, this just seems like an extremely powerful card. You like how the card art changes? Yeah, the card just changes, I think, so pretty cool. But yeah, it just seems, and you can also give it spell damage, which there's a lot of spell damage in this set, so it seems very strong. Next, we have another Shaman card, this time a legendary, Brukan. 4 mana, 5/4. Spell damage +3. I mean, what do you want me to say? It's a 4 mana 5/4, which is totally fine, and it comes with spell damage +3 for some reason. Yeah, just extremely good. Obviously, if you can't use the spell damage that well in a particular deck, it might not be as good, but I mean, that just seems very strong. Not much read into that, I guess. Move on to the next card, Peon. Oh, it's nature spell damage. Oh, okay, interesting. Actually, let's look at I have this pulled up to be able to do this, so interesting. So it works on Lightning Storm, it works on Lightning Bolt, it works on all the lightning spells basically. Okay. It's still, I mean, these are like some of the main ones you'd want to use it with. But okay, so it's probably not as good as I thought, but I mean, it's still very good. We'll see. They probably haven't announced all the nature spells in the game yet, so we'll see if how many of the new ones work with. I think that means I didn't see Maelstrom Portal on this list, so it doesn't work with something like Maelstrom Portal or the other removal, the 2 mana deal 1 that can repeat. It doesn't work with that either then. So it does matter. It doesn't work with everything. Interesting. Anyway, Peon, this is a neutral minion, 2 mana 2/3, so it's a fine minion already. And if it's a frenzy, you add a random spell from your class to your hand. So it seems pretty good. You know, frenzy on a small minion like this is going to be extremely hard to trigger unless you trigger it with something like an Og Merchant on the turn you play it. But I'm not sure that you would really want to do that just to get a random spell. Depends on which class you're playing, I guess. Random spells are going to be a lot better than they used to be, just as a result of the changes. So, you know, anything that says random is going to be better. Like Wandmaker, for example, is going to be insane too. So this seems really good. Frenzy is a one-time effect you get after it survives damage. But yeah, not too much to say there. Next, we have an interesting card. Mankrik. 3 mana 3/4 Bow Cry. Help him find his wife. She was seen somewhere in your deck. So basically, this just shuffles a card into your deck that gives a 3/10. If you draw that card, you get a 3/10 that immediately goes phase. So, I mean, it's a 3 mana 3/4. It's very good. It's a legendary. You won't see it that much, but yeah, it just gives a giant minion. I like that. I generally don't like these kinds of cards because, you know, card draw is kind of the worst kind of RNG, but I mean, at least it's, even though 3/10 is a hell of a lot of stats, at least it doesn't end the game, so it's not like you automatically lose if they draw it immediately, but it's going to be it's pretty nasty when your opponent gets a 3/10 on turn 4, possibly, right? But, you know, yeah, like you say, it's going to be a very good card. Next we have another neutral minion, Razorfen Raider. Frenzy, attack a random enemy on a 5 mana 5/6. So if you do have, again, a way to trigger this, you could have like give it Rush or Og Merchant, whatever. You basically get Rush on this thing as well, except it's a random enemy. But also it's a 5 mana 5/6. So you can imagine if you play this on an empty board, your opponent only can play 1 minion to defend against it, or if you can just remove more minions that they play. You can basically use this as Wind Fury on the next turn. You just play a 5 mana 5/6, and then the next turn you trade into your opponent's last minion, and then it just goes face because that's the only enemy. This seems like that'll probably be the most common way to use this, and just it's an extremely powerful aggressive card then. So, you know, there aren't even that many great like stat drops on 5, I think. So this is going to be a card that we're going to see all over the place. Going to be very common. And this might be actually an extremely meta-defining card because the fact that this aggression is going to exist. Yeah, Frenzy can only activate once. This is going to be a major influence in games ending a lot faster. So this will be, I think, will have a serious impact on the meta in Arena. Might pushing the game more aggro. Alright, so next we have Sunscale Raptor. Frenzy, shuffle a Sunscale Raptor into your deck with permanent +2/+1. So It's a 1 mana 1/3, which is good. If you can shuffle, sometimes you don't even want to shuffle 1-drops in, even if they're buffed, because it's not that relevant. But, you know, this shuffles a 1 mana 3/4 in, which is just, that's a lot of stats, you know, it's pretty good. If you can get the Frenzy. Sometimes you might not be able to, but yeah, so I mean, it's a very good early game minion for Hunter. This is a Hunter card, so we will see about that. Does the 2-1 Raptor have the same battle cry? It says it's the same card, so yes, you would be able to repeat it. So you can't trigger the same frenzy multiple times, but you would be able to make a 3/4 and then a 5/5 and then whichever. The workout's gone just for this stream. Next we have one of the powerhouse cards of this set, which is Drew the Plains, a 7 mana 7/6 rush with Frenzy, transform into a 6/7 with Taunt. So if your opponent has anything like a 5/5 or a 5/7, really like Smug Senior is going to be crying. Smug Senior is going to be shaking his boots from this card because it just eats it for free and then turns into a 6/7. So again, like for Frenzy, it does have to survive. So if your opponent has like, I don't know, like a 10/6 or something, you know, say, then if you have to trade this in, you don't get the 6/7 taunt, so it's not as good. But most of the time, you're going to be able to get something good out of this. You're going to be able to use this. It has enough health that, you know, it's extremely, extremely strong. Basically deals 7 damage and then summon a 6/7 taunt. Very good. All right, next we have another one of the upgrading ranked cards. Imp Swarm. 2 mana, summon a 3/2 imp. And then I think for rank 2, rank 3, yeah, you just get more imps. So it's obviously a lot of, you can always play as a 2 mana 3/2. Actually, in this set, I feel like a 2 mana 3/2 is going to feel pretty weak because there's with no text. But yeah, there's going to be, I feel like with a lot of these rank cards, you're going to want to play it on like turn 5, turn 6 a lot, because by the time you get to this point, you know, like it's just, at any point, like, you know, if you hold it really long, it's just going to get AoE'd anyway. So yeah, a lot of these you're going to want to play at rank 2. So turn 5, turn 6, 2 3/2s for 2 mana. Seems very good. It's never going to be that bad because at worst it's 2 mana 3/2 on turn 2, so, you know, very good, but it's fine. Yeah, I don't really have the star rating system for here. People can still put their star ratings in the chat, by the way. But yeah, I feel like the power level is getting to the point where you probably have to like recalibrate where the stars are, because like this probably is like a 3-star. I feel like this should be like a 3-star now. Even though this would have been like a 4 to 4.5 probably a year ago, but now I think like this would probably be where I would like try to calibrate a 3-star, which is crazy, but you know, that's where we are now. I'm moving on to another neutral minion. This one an epic. Spirit Healer. After you cast a holy spell, give a random friendly minion +2 health. Now, one thing, I think I looked before, and there are not that many classes that have holy spells. So even though this is a neutral, see, I had Shaman selected. It's only Priest and Paladin right now that have holy spells. There's probably ways that other classes could randomly get one of these, but not very likely. So generally, even though it's neutral, but it's not really going to be active outside of Priest and Paladin. So in those classes, this card, I mean, is just probably really good. You're probably not going to get that buff too much, and it's only 1 minion. It's not like it's buffing all minions. But, I mean, a 4 mana 3/6 is still totally playable. Moving on to probably, I guess, one of the weaker cards of the set. Desperate Prayer. 0 mana, restore 5 health to each hero. So, you know, I mean, this is a priest spell. It is holy. But, you know, if you're playing that kind of really slow deck that has all of the value in the world, and you don't mind putting 0 mana heal 5 in your deck, and you don't really care about healing the enemy, you could totally draft this, but in most decks, you're probably not going to. This with Cirella. I know which card that is. Oh dear, that's terrifying. Oh no. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, there are some combos which will be relevant, but yeah, probably not a card you're gonna be drafting too often. Next is, oh, I haven't seen this card. Oh no, I saw it before. There's a new Kazakus. I just didn't realize this is a new Kazakus. So 4 mana, 3/3. If your deck has no 4-cost cards, build a custom Golem. I don't know what this does. This is not very specific. I don't know what these are. Chat, help me. Help me, chat. I don't know. I'm sure it's good. The problem is like having no 4-cost cards is a pretty difficult thing to have a lot of the time, so it probably won't be very good. Deal damage, draw cards. Oh, is it like the same effects as old Kazakus, but it's attached to a minion? Oh, yeah. So if you can get this off, it's really strong, but, you know, it would be very dependent on that, obviously. So it's basically like the Kazakus potion, except it's a golem. Great. The power crept Kazakus. Nice. Alright. Alright. Primordial Protector is next. 8 mana, 6/6. Draw your highest cost spell. Summon a random minion with the same cost. Well, obviously, this is very dependent on what spells you have in your deck. This will be a frustrating card sometimes because you're going to have like a Flame Strike and you're not going to have a Pyroblast anymore because there's no Pyroblast. But you're going to have big spells and then you're going to draw this only after you draw all of your other big spells. And it's going to be very tilting. Definitely if you this would be one of those cards where if you have the right deck for it, it's amazing. But if you're only drawing, I guess if you're drawing like, where would the break even be? Like if you think you're drawing like a 3-cost spell even, an 8 mana 6/6 with draw a card with summon like a random 3-drop. That's probably a little weak. You probably want something a little better than that. But yeah, it seems good. Yeah, that's one of the problems is right now they still haven't announced the rotation, so we don't actually know which cards are going to be in. So it's a little hard to judge. It's going to depend on a lot on the class regardless. Imagine this card with Shaman having Eye of the Storm. Oh dear. Alright, next we have a Paladin Legendary. Battlecry, transform your secrets into 3/3 soldiers. They transform back when they die. That's interesting. I believe that means you have to have secrets on the board, and then they just turn into 3/3s, but then they go back. This seems kind of bad, honestly. I mean, if you have the secrets are going to be good, so they're going to be draftable, but I mean, it allows your opponent, like if you're trying to like get like a specific secret to kind of screw over your opponent, it's going to be, I don't know, because one of the new Paladin secrets is let me see, where is it? It was not here. Oh, it's in the core set, isn't it? Yeah, Reckoning. So Reckoning, after an enemy minion deals 3 or more damage, destroy it. Like you might be screwing your opponent over with Reckoning, and then if you play this minion, you're just gonna give your opponent an out, kind of, because then you just let them trade off with that minion that they don't do. So I don't know. This card just seems way too situational to ever be that good. I forgot not to click here. Alright, moving on. Mordresh Fire Eye. Battlecry. If you've dealt 10 damage to the hero power of this game, deal 10 damage to all minions. So overall, this card would generally be way too slow. It goes phase 2. All enemies includes the enemy phase. So they did reprint Pyroblast. Yeah, constructed card. You say constructed card, but I think the next card on the list here, we'll just talk about it right now, Reckless Apprentice. Fire hero power all enemies. So this also goes phase, and And yeah, Caldera Drake is in the set, and I'm not sure if there's any way to actually make your hero power deal more damage or not, but yeah, it will be, especially if you draft this card specifically, it will be very possible to get this to go off on turn 10 even. Depends on how many, your opponent would almost have to play minions, a bunch of minions to be able to get this to go off on more targets, but this will be something that will occasionally work. But yeah, it's still going to be kind of specific though. You would love to have this card if you have like multiple of these. So now let's talk a little bit more about Reckless Apprentice. So 4-mana 3/5, fire hero power all enemies. Obviously this is in Mage, so that's with Fire Blast. And I remember I was looking at Mistcaller because of this, but you guys remember when this was like a really good arena card? 5 mana, deal 1 damage to all other minions, but this includes your own minions. I guess with this card, there would be situations where you actually would want to hit your own minions if you could with it. But yeah, this is just a power crept Dragonmaw Scorcher, even without the synergy. It's cheaper, it's better stats for the cost, and it only hits enemies, and it goes face. So yeah, just a really good card. Probably gonna be nearly auto pick. Next we have a Demon Hunter legendary. I think that's a lot of legendaries already. Kurtrus Ashfallen. 4 mana 3/4 battle cry. Attack the left and rightmost enemy minions. Outcast immune. So it's hard for any of these cards to be really bad because sometimes sometimes you just need the initiative, and the fact that you can't control it isn't the greatest, but again, at least it's not RNG, right? At least you know what it's going to do, right? I assume it goes left and then right first based off the wording. So you know exactly what it does. If it has immune, you can kill anything and it'll still leave a 3/4 body behind. So that seems, I mean, overall, it's going to be very good. Obviously, if you have a deck where it's difficult to outcast things, this might not be quite as good, but overall, it seems like a very flexible and sometimes extremely powerful card. It's going to be brutal if you play this on curve outcasted. Brutal. Alright, next we have Razorfen Beastmaster, which is an interesting card because this is another Demon Hunter card. There are multiple Demon Hunter cards that have Death Rattle synergy in Demon Hunter, which is weird because currently Demon Hunter doesn't really have access to Death Rattle. So this might be a thing that they are going to continue to promote over the next year. But anyway, right now, 3 mana 3/3 Death Rattle. Summon a Death Rattle minion that costs 4 or less from your hand. So it can summon itself if you have 2 of these. Otherwise, I don't think there's a whole lot of strong Death Rattles in Standard right now. In general, especially not ones that cost 4 or less, because you can't get like Cairn or anything. So, I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you have... This probably isn't going to be a card that's going to be too great, because it's a little narrow. Death Rattle 4 or less. Like, if you pull like a 2 mana Death Rattle, I guess it's okay, but... It's probably not going to be the greatest card, at least now. We'll see. We'll see if they print more cards. I know that they haven't announced new Death Rattles yet, so we'll see what they do, though. They probably will announce some at some point. Next, we have Mor'shan Elite. 5 mana 4/4 taunt. Battlecry, if you hero attack this turn, summon a copy of this. Oh, geez. Well, this is a warrior card, so obviously it's going to be it's going to be slightly inconsistent because warrior doesn't always have weapon, but I mean, you literally just, Sword Eater into this card. That's going to be really strong. We're reviewing mostly for Arena, but I might talk a little bit about Standard too, but I mostly do Arena stuff, so. Yeah. So 2 4/4 taunts after you play Sword Eater on turn 4. Jeez. That's a lot. That's a lot of value. That's a lot of value. Sometimes you're not going to have the weapon and it's going to be difficult. But that's such an easy... The fact that you don't even have to like spend mana to have your hero attack this turn because you already have the weapon equipped. This is just kind of nutty. Terrifying. Oh, wait, and there's also a copy of this? Yeah, and this also works with hand buffs. Oh, jeez. Oh man. Warrior has taunt hand buffs too. Oh, this is gonna be terrifying. Moving on. Sigil of Flame. This is an interesting new mechanic they're giving Demon Hunter this expansion as well, which is at the start of your next turn. So it's a delayed spell. It triggers automatically at the start of the next turn that you play it. So deal 3 damage to all minions. This card is going to be, obviously you would only pick this in a more defensive style deck for the most part, right? But I mean Hellfire for 2 mana, pretty good. Yeah, it's like a dormant spell basically. If you're playing a slow defensive deck, obviously your opponent can, will know it's there so that they can kind of not play directly into it, but I mean it's a lot of removal, so I think it should be pretty good in the right deck, but not going to be like an instant pick. Moving on to Barack, Mr. Obama, Kodobane. Hunter Legendary, 5 mana 3/5, draw 1, 2, and 3 cost spell. 5 mana 3/5, draw 3, like that was actually, Warrior has a card similar to this, which it was based off of the tribes. That was one of the highest performing cards in the game at the time. Well, at the time it was literally like, it's still in the game. But the one thing is that you won't always have 1, 2, and 3 cost spells in Hunter, I imagine. Yeah, Whitley is the name of the card. So if you can get like reasonably reliably, or Watley, yeah, Watley. If you can get like 2 draws, this is already pretty good. If you only get 1 draw, this feels a little weak. But yeah, if you have the right deck, again, like if you have a bunch of spells, sure, you would pick this over most things. All right. Next we have Lightshower Elemental, who literally gives a golden shower onto all of your minions and your own face. Nice. 6 mana 6/6 taunt. Death Rattle, restore 8 health to all friendly characters. So, I mean, this is like the ultimate defensive card, right? It's worth noting, like, I mean, if you just play like a 5 mana 5/6 or something, and then you just value trade with it, and then you play this card and your opponent can't kill the 5/2, then you just get to full heal that 5/6 as well, on top of healing 8 per 8 if you needed to. It's just a very, very strong card. It's not going to be the best card always, because sometimes it is just pretty much going to be a 6 mana 6/6, especially in an aggressive deck. If you don't have big stats on board, it won't do too much, but yeah, the Smork players will not like this card very much. Alright, moving on. Horde Operative. They're getting rid of a lot of the hate cards in this game, and then they print this card. Because Secret Mage is devastating wild, and they're like, okay, you guys can have this. 3 mana 3/4, Battlecry, copy your opponent's secrets and put them in play. So I think they had 4 mana 4/3, which stole 1 secret as a card, but this literally steals all of them. So I mean, and it's not even understand, so it's a 3 mana 3/4. You probably would just, unless it's up against something really good, you probably just take this because the upside is you literally just win the game. So yeah, this is like going to be an extremely high performing card, and this might be a. I have said like secrets are going to be good, especially in like Paladin, but you might not want to pick secrets just because this card exists. If you can help it. Sometimes you'll have to, but yeah. You'll see a lot of these. It's a rare, so it won't be the most common thing, but yeah. It's going to be a very good card. Alright, next we have Condemn, a holy spell in Priest, which starts out 2 mana, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. So it's Arcane Explosion. But then at 5 mana, it upgrades to 2 damage. At 10 mana, it upgrades to 3 damage. So, I mean, more consistency on Priest having a lot of AoE removal. They aren't just stuck on Holy Nova and what the new card, the the 3 mana that kill an entire board card. They're gonna have even more consistency. But yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, this is definitely seems like a pretty good card. You can always use it with spell damage as well. Yeah, Hysteria is the card I'm thinking of. And any cards like this that are like sometimes it's not going to be the strongest card in the earlier mid game. If you can get 2 mana deal 2 to all enemies, that's honestly that's already really good. But then even in late game, it's even better. Just a really strong card. It's an epic, so you won't see it that often, but yeah, not much to say there. Next, we have another rank card, Tame Beast. 2 mana, summon a 2/2 beast with rush, which is a little weak, honestly. It's not the worst though. At 5 mana, it upgrades to 4/4 with rush, which suddenly becomes very good. And then rank 3, summon a 6/6 with rush, which is extremely, extremely good. Demon Hunter has their card that, you know, if you try really hard, you can make it a 1 mana 6/6 rush, but this one just automatically upgrades without you having to do anything other than having 10 mana. So this just seems. I think it's worth saying, like I guess a 2/2 rush isn't the worst thing, but this is one of the weaker spells, one of the weaker upgrading spells at its base, but then it becomes very strong. So otherwise, seems like a very good card. Next, we have Yoink. 1 mana spell. This is a epic rogue card. Discover hero power instead cost a 2. Swap back after 2 uses. So you discover a hero power. According to this, it doesn't say discover a different hero power. You could probably discover rogue hero power too, right? It doesn't say it has to be a different one. You might discover your same hero power. Anyway, obviously, like one of the things you'd be looking to get like very specific hero powers. It's good when you have like rogue dagger if you can also get, you know, mage hero power on top of it to have more flexibility. But one of the main uses will just be to get warlock hero power to get 2 cards. So then, yeah, I mean, 1 mana, you take 4 damage, which is a little tough for a rogue, but then you just draw 2 cards for 1 mana. Seems very good. Discover is usually your own class. Well, it's Discover hero power, which is just different. So yeah, you won't say too much, but I mean, just to, I guess it's going to be like, well, honestly, if you just get mage hero power, you'll probably get something decently good. Even you'll always get like, you'll usually get either like warlock, druid, or mage. Like I think it'll be worth it. It's a little low impact if you don't hit like warlock potentially, but it seems it's definitely pickable. It's probably not the strongest card though. Next is No Fin Can Stop Us. And also, I mean, sometimes you're really just going to be desperate for healing too. Like it's flexible enough, it'll do something. Next is No Fin Can Stop Us. Give your minions +1/+1 for 3 mana. Murlocs, an extra +1/+1. So I don't know how many Murlocs Shaman's going to have. There's other Murloc cards in this set too. You're still generally not going to have too many Murlocs in Arena, but you probably have a couple. As is, I don't know, even if you have like a Murloc on board, say you have like 1 Murloc on board and like 2 other minions, like it's just, this card isn't that much better than just like 2 mana +1/+1 AoE. So, it's in Shaman, and Shaman has all these totems and ways to spread, so this card's probably fine, but it's probably not the greatest. You'd probably pick it if you had, you know, a super spready aggro deck, but in a slower deck, you probably don't want this. Moving on to a card I've already heard people complain about in my chat. Oil Rig Ambusher. A rogue rare card. 4 mana 4/4, Battlecry, deal 2 damage, which can go face, by the way. If this entered your hand this turn, deal 4 damage instead. So it's kind of like an outcast card, except it only works with the top deck. Yeah, I mean, 4 mana 4/4, deal 2 damage is extremely strong. Wild Plume Phoenix is 4 mana 3/3, deal 2 damage, and that's a good card. So this is already really good. Sometimes if you just happen to top deck it on a turn, it's good. You're just going to win the game instantly. Does this also work with return to hand mechanics? I don't know. I would think so. So like the question is like if it's like Shadow Step. If you Shadow Step it, does it deal 4 damage immediately? Probably. Because it technically entered your hand. I assume return to hand is enter your hand. It might not, but you would assume it does work, because that would make it extremely strong too. Shadow Step, I think, is going to be an extremely busted card in this expansion. In general. There are other cards like New Ysera and stuff in the core set. Yeah. But yeah, it's just an extremely, extremely strong card. Next we have the Hunter Epic minion. 2-mana, 2/3, Kolkor Pack Runner. After you cast the spell, summon a 1/1 Hyena with Rush. Okay. So they took out Unleash the Hounds, but they give you this card. There's gonna be, we already saw the legendary earlier. The Hunter legendary, which draws a bunch of cheap spells, a 1/2/3 mana spell. And Hunter in the core set too is going to have like, they're getting these like, they have the 2 mana secrets, they have like Lock and Load, which gives a bunch of Hunter cards, tracking, like good 1 mana spells in the core set. So I mean, this seems like a card you can get pretty good value off of a lot of the time. And at worst case, it's a 2 mana 2/3. So yeah, it's build your own Unleash the Hounds. Seems extremely good. Moving on to Living Seed, another rank card. 2 mana, draw a beast, reduce its cost by 1. So you do have to have, one thing that might make this card a little awkward is you might not always have beast. But then when it upgrades, it just reduces the cost of the card. This is probably, like this is, at rank 1, this isn't really worth a card. Probably. And then it doesn't really improve by that much, because by the time you get here, like in Constructed, maybe you do combos with this, but you don't really care that much about discounting in Arena typically. So this might be the weakest rank card that we've seen. But I mean, if you have beasts, if it's gonna go off, like it's fine. It still cycles itself, but it's just not that productive. Moving on to another rank card, Flurry, the mage one. 0 mana, freeze a random enemy minion, and then it upgrades to 2 to 3 enemy minions. So there are going to be some freeze synergies in the set. Obviously, freezing isn't always worth a card. It depends on how much cards you get. I mean, how many cards you have, if you can afford to just, you know, spend a card to do this. But if you have, especially if you have synergy, this seems like a very good card. It's like way better than, you know, Frost Nova or something, because it costs you 0 mana. You can trigger spell bursts and stuff. So you probably wouldn't want this in every deck, but in the right deck, this could be like, this could honestly be one of the best cards in your deck if you have the right deck for it. But again, it's just not going to be good in every deck. Next we have Mark of the Spike Shell. And they're really doing Druid dirty, aren't they? Give a minion +2/+2. If it has taunt, add a copy of it to your hand. This card isn't that bad. There's gonna be some taunt synergy in Druid. But I mean, 2 mana, give a minion +2/+2. I think even like Mark of the Wild was buffed, so it's +2/+3. It isn't really a unique effect there. But does the copy retain the buff? I don't think so, right? Too bad Goldshire Footman is gone. Exactly right. It can't, right? Because otherwise, it does retain the buff. But then would it retain other buffs? It doesn't make sense if it would. But maybe it does. I don't know. Because if it was a real copy, then it would retain other buffs too, potentially. I don't think it generally works that way. It just wouldn't make sense if it would. So it's like 2-mana 2/2, sometimes draw a card. But yeah. You know, if you can draw off it, it's really good. But otherwise, it's just a little underwhelming for a card. Next, we have Priest of Anshe, or I guess it's Anshe. 5-mana 5/5 taunt battle cry. If you restored health this turn, game +3/+3. Yeah, it's like the last card was like a Mark of Yasharaj, basically. If you've restored health this turn, gain +3/+3. So if you have to, you can play it as a 5/5 taunt, which is alright. It's not great. But yeah, a lot of times you're just going to play this on turn 7 as an 8/8, which is very good. It's going to be, compared to like the Paladin card, it doesn't have Divine Shield, but it's way easier to trigger it than it is to corrupt a 6 with a 6 or higher cost card. What's up, Malka? But yeah, there are other ways, like you can play this with Renew or Binding Heal or the 0-mana heal potentially if you want to. So sometimes this is going to be very strong. Priest is having a lot of anti-aggro in this set. It's going to be very tough to play aggro against Priest. Next we have Bloodshard Bristleback. That is a really long flavor text. 3-mana 3/3 lifesteal, Battle Cry. If your deck contains 10 or fewer cards, deal 6 damage to a minion. The hell? So in Constructed, you might actually build decks around this with like backfire and stuff. In Arena, it's going to take it. You might be able to trigger that text on. Usually, you won't trigger that before like turn 10 at the earliest, and that's only if you're aggressively tapping. But that 6 damage, this thing has lifesteal, so you would heal for 6 on the turn you play. It's extremely strong if you get there. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, it's a 3-mana 3/3 with lifesteal, so it's Hunter. I mean, Warlock really likes healing, so I mean, it's gonna be like an Earthen Ring Farseer at worst, most of the time. So this card's pickable, but yeah, you would much higher value this in a slower deck. We actually think you might get to do this. I think games are going to be ending a little quick for this card, though, but we'll see. If the meta is slower, that card's going to be a really high performing card. Otherwise, it probably won't. Next, we have Soul Rend, 4-mana Shadow Spell for Warlock. Deal 5 damage to all minions, including your own. Destroy a card in your deck for each killed. So Fellfire Potion was a card that was printed not that long ago, which was 6-mana, deal 5 to all minions and both heroes. This does not hit phase, which is really good for Warlock, because sometimes those cards that deal self-damage become a little double-edged. But destroying a card in your deck for each killed. We have the upside here that this card gets you closer to activating this, which could be good. And so that's the thing, is like, I don't think in a lot of, if you have things like this might not be a downside. This is actually an upside, potentially. And yeah, you're not gonna fatigue yourself too much, I don't think. But, you know, sometimes you might. So there is that. But yeah, it's controllable, right? You just wouldn't, if you were really worried about fatiguing, you just wouldn't use this on a bunch of 1/1s. But yeah, I mean, it seems really strong. I think it's pretty good. Like, at worst case, like, a lot of times you might just use it as 4 damage to deal 5 removal to a single target, you know, and just discard 1 card from your deck. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, seems like it'd be good. Obviously, you wouldn't pick this in an aggressive deck, but yeah. Because it would also be the aggressive decks where you'd be more worried about fatiguing if the game gets drawn out. So in a slow deck, I think you'll like this card. Next, we have the Warlock Legendary, Tamsin Rame. That is the weirdest name I have ever seen. 3-mana 1/3. Whenever you cast a shadow spell, it costs 1 or more, add a copy. What? Oh god. To your hand that costs 0. That is a lot of value. So it does say when you cast a shadow spell, which would mean, I'm going to look at, this is a shadow spell. Let's look at what the shadow spells are that have been announced so far in Warlock. So you can get this card, you can't really get Nether, but you can get like a second Siphon Soul, second Drain Soul, which was buffed, a second Mortal Coil. If you have the right shadow spells, this seems really good. Obviously, you have to actually have shadow spells or else this won't do anything. So some decks, this will be completely useless. But yeah, just getting a second 0 mana Siphon Soul, that seems really, really good. Again, it's a combo-y card, so you need to have the right cards for it, but that's a lot of upside. Obviously, like, Warlock doesn't need value, but getting a 0 mana Siphon, really good. There are also cards that a lot of them heal you, so it's really nice. Next we have one of the other shadow spells. 1 mana, Grimoire of Sacrifice. Destroy a friendly minion, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. Okay. So this is kind of, that's interesting. This is like a zoo AoE. You need to have a cheap minion to give up, but then you get Consecration that doesn't hit phase. Okay, if you have a bunch of small things, it's an extremely powerful effect. Nerubian Egg, exactly. Yeah, Nerubian Egg is coming into the core set, so yeah, this will be sometimes even if you have a usually in Warlock you're trying to get some kind of 1 mana card, so this seems like a pretty good thing. You would just save like a 1 mana card and just use this to get AoE on demand. Seems like it'd be pretty good a lot of the time. Not good in every deck, because if you don't have early game, it's a little weak, but you don't have the 1 cost cards, but usually you will in Warlock. Because even in the slower Warlock decks, you usually want to have 1-drops just to stay alive, so seems good. Next is Veteran War Medic, Paladin minion. It's an epic. 4 mana, 3/5. After you cast a holy spell, summon a 2/2 medic with lifesteal. That is a nice effect. You do need to be able to cast holy spells. We were looking earlier at the holy spells. I think it looked like a lot of them were cheap. Yeah, a lot of them are really cheap, including one of the new cards, a couple of the secrets. Pursue Justice, Consecration, Blessing of Kings. So not the toughest card to combo. So this seems like a very, obviously you do need to have the synergy. If it's just a 4 mana 3/5, it's a little underwhelming, but in a slower deck, you're gonna like this card a lot. Next is Invigorating Sermon. 4 mana. This is a holy spell. Give +1/+1 to all minions in your hand, deck, and battlefield. Unlike some of the other cards Paladin is getting, this card does not work on your hero power. Unless it works on your dudes on board, but not on, your future hero powers, so it doesn't work there. But it's an interesting card because, this was a card that was printed several years ago. It was a 6 mana 4/4. This one doesn't even buff your battlefield. So like compared to Mistcaller, this card is significantly better. It's for 2 mana, give +1/+1. That would already be pretty good. And then it buffs everything in your hand. So this seems like a good card. It's a little slow, but it's just so much value. It's not as good as like you would still probably, this card's slow enough that like you would probably much rather have something like Survival of the Fittest, but in Paladin, assuming you have enough spread, you're going to want to pick this index where you actually can get, decent value out of the battlefield buff, I think. But yeah, assuming you can get enough value out of it immediately that you can afford to, invest the value, it seems very good. But you probably wouldn't take it in every deck. Next we have, this card is so good. Cariel Roame. How do you say these? Roame? Are they Roame or Roame? Because this is the second one of these. Same last name. Anyway, this is a 4 mana 4/3 Rush Divine Shield. Whenever this attacks, reduce the cost of holy spells in your hand by 1. Ramen? Nice. Nice. I'm hungry. Darn you, Robopop. No. But so this just seems extremely strong. So, you know, there's a 3 mana 3/2 Divine Shield that you can sometimes corrupt into a rush. That is one of the best 3-drops ever printed. This card is giving +1/+1 to a card like that is for a mana is very good. That's easily worth it. So this is just a better version of that card. And it also reduces all holy spells. It's not just like one holy spell, it's all of them. They do have to be in your hand, but yeah, I mean, this is just like, this is going to be like basically auto pick unless it's up against something even more broken. It's a legendary, you won't see it that much, but you're going to get wrecked by this card. All right, next. Ooh, another one. This is an interesting one. Tavish Stormpike, 3 mana 2/5, which is a decent stat line. After a friendly beast attack, summon a beast from your deck that costs 1 less. Librams are holy. Nice. So there are some specific beasts you would want to combo this with. I was looking through the list. I believe actually let me just pull it up. Hunter Beast. I believe Gryphon is leaving, but like Zixor is a rush you can combo this with. Lion is a rush you can combo this with. Not this one. Rhino is a rush you can combo this with. So you can potentially just chain multiple rush minions with this. And there are other combos you can have too. You can also, if you have buffed beasts in your deck, which there are ways to do, you might pull specific ones as well. As Jay pointed out, you can also use this with the new 2-mana spell. Yeah, that's really good. The upgrade spell. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with this. It should be pre on average. Also, you can just play this. You can just have a high main on board and then just play this, and then you summon a 5-drop beast from your deck. So it's kind of specific. You do need to have like the right cost card in your deck, but I mean, this is going to be a card that's going to be very, very good when it goes off. And potentially game winning if you can chain it. Yeah, so, alright. The Mage Legendary, Varden Dawngrasp. 4 mana 3/3. That seems not so good, right? Battlecry. Freeze all enemy minions. Okay, so Frost Nova is reprinted. And if any are already frozen, deal 4 damage to them instead of freezing them. 4 mana Flame Strike. I guess we can't call it Flame Strike anymore because now Flame Strike is 5 damage. But, oh my gosh. So you can combo this with the 0 mana freeze multiple minion spell, potentially. Yeah. On turn 5, you could deal 4 damage to 2 enemies if you have that card. Yeah. I mean, at worst, like a 4 mana 3/3 Frost Nova seems very, very strong. In general, like you play that in a slow deck or a fast deck, that's just a powerful effect. And being able to deal 4 damage as well if you have the right synergies, really good. There's just so many things you could do with this. It's extremely, extremely powerful card. Next we have, have we reviewed like any cards and just been like, no, this card is not good? Like, there's only been like 2 cards that were like not like really good so far. Kind of funny, I was hearing people complaining about the set not being strong, and it's like, well, at least from the arena perspective, it's like literally all these cards are good. Sometimes they print the weaker cards towards the end, or they announce the weaker cards towards the end though, so maybe the second half of the cards announced won't be as strong. Anyway, moving on. Firemancer Flurgle. Another Murloc card, continuing the Shaman Murloc synergy. 2 mana 2/3 after you play a Murloc, deal 1 damage to all enemies. So there's some Murloc synergy again, and sometimes you're just gonna pop off and get free. This goes face also, and just get like multiple AoEs. Yeah, sometimes you're gonna pop off with this. At worst, it's a 2 mana 2/3. It's extremely strong card. It's a legendary. I think legendaries are gonna be good enough at this point that you might not always be able to. There are better legendaries. So you might not always take this, but yeah, I mean, if you have the right deck for this, you're gonna take this. Unless it's up against something even more broken. Next we have Warsong Envoy. 1 mana, 1/3. Frenzy, gain +1 attack for each damaged character. So each damaged character, that includes that includes heroes and that includes your enemy minions. I mean, it's a 1 mana, 1/3. It's a very good early game stat line already. And then, I mean, sometimes it's gonna be like, you have to damage it first, but then it would become like, it might become like a 7/2. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, they're losing Cruel Taskmaster, right? Do you imagine if you just played this, you just play a Cruel Taskmaster on turn 2 on this? Yeah, sometimes it's just gonna pop off, but most of the time it's pretty much just gonna be like a, it might be a 1/3 that if it survives becomes like, you know, a 3/2 or a 3/1 or something. Occasionally you can get completely memed by it. You must be able to do like, I guess not that much. If you get a whole bunch of these and then Whirlwind your board, you could just OTK someone. But it's probably not gonna do that much most of the time. But it's still good early game. 1 mana 1/3s are never gonna be that bad. Next is Paralytic Poison. 1 mana, nature spell or rogue. Give your minion +1 attack, and your hero is immune while attacking. So this thing with self-sharpening sword is terrifying. Let's just put that out of the way. Let's just get that out there right now. Otherwise, I mean, so compared to like Deadly Poison, I think like you definitely wouldn't pick this over like the, not Deadly Poison, but the 1 mana Corrupt card. That card's definitely better. This thing is basically like a weaker Deadly Poison, but it, you know, it heals you effectively by not taking the damage. But yeah, if you probably wouldn't want this. It's probably not, it probably doesn't do enough if you don't have some kind of synergy, but if you have an Assassin's Blade, if you have a self-sharpening sword, you could definitely look at this. Probably not the strongest card on average, but in the right deck, it's going to be. If you have a slower deck that cares about the healing, potentially, it's going to be good. I don't think you would take it just for using it on the dagger most of the time, though. But, you know. Good with new weapon. I don't know what the new weapon is. We're going to find out. Guff Rune Totem. I'm confused. Blizzard, I am confused. This thing has totem in the name and it is a druid card. I guess druid has totems now through the 2/2 buffs, the 2/2 rush dudes. But anyway, after you cast a nature spell, give another minion +2/+2. Oh. How cheap are nature spells? This might actually be, at least in constructed, this might be a relatively defining card. But that was not what I wanted to. Filters. Oh, actually, I'm just looking at the core set right now. I need to be looking over here. Druid. Nature. Okay, so it's all of these. And like you get Innervate and stuff. And then you have like Mark the Wild. So there's a fair number of things. You can kind of pop off with this is the point. It's gonna be a little specific, it seems like. But I mean, yeah, if you have the right cards, it seems like it would do a lot, but it's a little specific and kind of conditional, I guess. But you know, it's one of the better things that Druid has right now, because Druid is not going to have a lot, it seems like. So that might be something you try to pop off with. Next is a Demon Hunter spell. Sigil of Silence. 0 mana. At the start of your next turn, silence all enemy minions. So this is an extremely powerful effect, but obviously your opponent can do it. Knows that it's going to be there. There's like 2 main uses of this card, I think. This card, you can hit a Proto Drake with this because a lot of times the Proto Drake isn't going to be able to trade itself off. So you just know you'll hit the Proto Drake. It doesn't matter that you're not silencing it immediately as long as it doesn't die. So you can hit like a Proto Drake or something with this. But also, the way I think you actually want to use this is you just want to use this. You want to basically fill up your board. And exactly as Roropop said, you set up lethal. So you just know that your opponent can't play big taunts. Because, you know, anything they play is going to get silenced. You can also silence like any life steals they try to set up too, potentially. So it's a card you generally would want to use aggressively, but obviously it's a little niche because sometimes it's just not going to do anything. But so overall, it's probably not going to be a card you're going to take that often. But if you get like a spell discover, maybe this would be something you might actually pick in the right circumstance. Next we have Razormane Battleguard, Druid minion. The first taunt minion you play each turn costs 2 less. So there's some of that taunt synergy. This is basically, so this thing does not have taunt, and so you can still play this and then get the discount on the same turn. So it's basically like a 0 mana 2/3, and if it sticks around, you're gonna have a taunt if you have the card to pull it off. First of all, you can just play this on 2, and if it lives, you can play a 5-drop on turn 3. Druid of the Claw doesn't have taunt, right? So I don't think this works. You can't play this into Druid of the Claw. But there would be other minions you could pull off of it. But yeah, I mean, this is just, there's a lot of these cards that just have absolutely no downside. Yeah, you can pull Teacher's Pet. Teacher's Pet's like the best card you can get off of this. Oh man, that's gonna be like instant win. Yeah, there are some ones, and if it sticks around, you can keep getting the discount multiple times. It's probably, if it lives once, it's gonna keep living because it's gonna have taunt protecting it. So yeah, it's gonna be good. Next is Plague Maw the Rotting. After a friendly mini with taunt dies, summon a new copy of it without taunt. So the dream opening is you play this on turn 2, you play Teacher's Pet on turn 3, you play this on turn 4, and then you get a free 3-drop and another Teacher's Pet if you can trade off the Teacher's Pet. Nice. Yeah. It's a little specific. This is a hard thing to do because the problem is that taunt minions tend to die, you know? Since with all the rushes and stuff, your opponent's just going to put rushes in. So like, it's going to be a little hard to actually pull this off, I think, even if you have a good deck for it. But, you know, if you're playing against a class that can't really remove this through taunt, then you can just, anytime you have a taunt minion stick, you just play this and then it's going to get value. That's a little specific, but it, you know, the potential is there. Next we have Vengeful Spirit, the Demon Hunter Epic. 4 mana 4/4 Outcast. Draw 2 Death Rattle minions. So more of this Death Rattle synergy in Demon Hunter when Demon Hunter doesn't really have access to Death Rattles right now. So it's hard to say how good this will be. Right now, this honestly probably won't be. Well, depending on what you have, I mean, you can pull anything with this. So like you could just pull, if you know that you have like a Proto Drake, just being able to pull a Proto Drake or something's good. You have to outcast it, and otherwise it's a 4 mana 4/4. So this card is a little situational, but it's a very strong value card potentially. We'll still have to see like what kind of death rattles Demon Hunter actually has access to. But that's a little too early to tell for this, I want to say. But in the right deck, could be very good. Next we have an interesting card. Barrens Blacksmith. Frenzy. 5 mana 3/5, which is awful. The Frenzy, you give your other minions +2/+2. This is interesting because they haven't really printed cards like this in the neutral set before. I already heard constructed players talking about this card, saying they might play like Og Merchant just to trigger this card in an aggro deck. That would be like the potential, since it doesn't have rush like a lot of the frenzy minions do. A lot of the bigger frenzy minions have rush. You would need to actually have some way of comboing it, like an Aug Merchant or something. But in that case, it's a lot of stats. So basically, for 6 mana with an Aug Merchant, you get a 3/4, a 4/3. The Aug Merchant gets buffed, and then the rest of your board also gets buffed. And yeah, Broom as well. I think a lot of people are assuming Broom's gonna get nerfed, so you might not see it with Broom as much. But Broom, it could also work. But yeah, sometimes you might just play it on 5 and hope it doesn't die. But and if you play it on 5 and it doesn't die, no, it's just a one-time effect after it survives damage. So you can trigger it with Aug Merchant. But yeah, if you ever just play it on 5 and it doesn't die, you basically win the game instantly. But yeah, so it's gonna be a bit frustrating, I think. But overall, probably not the strongest card but if you have the right, you have the Aug Merchant triggers and stuff, you would probably, or any other kind of triggers that your class has access to, you might like it. Next is Deathspeaker Blackthorn. More Death Rattle, Synergy, and Demon Hunter. 7 mana, 3/6. Very low stats. Summon 3 Death Rattle minions that cost 5 or less from your deck. Well, that is a very powerful effect to justify having that low of stats. You need to have these cards actually in your deck, which means you need to have a lot of Death Rattles in your deck to consistently pull this off. If you're just pulling like 1 or 2 minions, depending on how big they are, if you pull like a 4-drop and a 3-drop, it's already pretty much worth it. But you would obviously want to pull like a bunch of 5-drops if you could. So that's the thing, is like, so still we're at the point where Demon Hunter really doesn't have access to really great Death Rattles in like the 4 to 5 cost range, which is what all these synergies are based off of. So we just have to see. Right now, this actually seems like it would probably be pretty weak because you're not pulling that great of minions right now, but that could very well change if they announce a couple like 4 or 5 mana Death Rattles that are really good. But we'll see. It's very high potential. Next we have Mor'shan Watchpost. This might actually be one of the strongest cards in the set, especially in the neutral set. 3 mana, 3/5, cannot attack, but after your opponent plays a minion, summon a 2/2 grunt. The reason this is so strong is because in Arena, a lot of interaction comes from summoning minions, including rush minions now. So even if they summon a rush minion to kill this, you still get a 2/2. And it's going to get the 3/5 stats. The fact that it can't attack isn't as relevant because they're going to have to kill it eventually because of its effect. So you're going to get the full value out of its stats. You might just not get to choose where the damage goes, but it will get full value. So this thing is very comparable to like Tar Creeper, because Tar Creeper also you can't really trade with. But yeah. So this card seems absolutely insane. I'm worried this card actually might be too strong. This card might be like, maybe we might be begging Blizzard to ban it from Arena. It might be that strong. Yeah, because I mean, you're just gonna lose games to this card, just straight up. If you're slightly behind on turn 3 and they play this card, you basically lose. If you can't like fireball it or something. So this game will win games this card will win games by itself, like often. So honestly terrifying. Moving on to a less terrifying card, Crossroads Watchpost. Can't attack whenever your opponent casts a spell, give your minions +1/+1. This card is much weaker because it's an effect that you can much more easily ignore. You will probably see this card just completely get ignored for entire games. If you're not a spell-based deck, you're literally just not going to care about this thing. You're just going to ignore it forever. But obviously, if you are a spell-based deck, you might just get completely lose. Because it buffs itself too. So if it's gonna stick, it's never dying. So this one will be, yeah, I think this will be a very bad, you probably just won't see this card very much because I think it's gonna be too weak most of the time. But yeah, occasionally you will get completely memed by this card if you're playing like a spell priest deck or something, but most of the time it's gonna be pretty weak. Next is Rokara, the warrior legendary minion. After a friendly minion attacks and survives, gives it +1/+1. Does that include itself? Probably. Does it trigger on itself? I don't know. Doesn't really matter. So it's only a 2/3. This card is like, so the thing is it just has to attack and survive. It doesn't have to like, the minion doesn't have to take damage or anything, so it will trigger if you just go face. Yeah, I assume it triggers on itself. So if there's a minion, if there's like a 1/1 you can rush it into, then if you just play this on curve, your opponent is like a 2/2, and you just get like you kill a 2/2, you get a 3/2 as well. So even if you have like no other minions on board, thing's actually decent in that circumstance if it survives. So this card's like, it's not the craziest card it's not the most overpowered card or anything, but I think it's good. It's good enough. It's going to be decent. It's definitely not the most broken card, but it's good. If you're getting like any kind of value out of it, you should get enough worth out of it that it's fine. Next is, oh god, Zarella. Battle Cry. If you restored health this turn, deal that much damage to all enemy minions. So, as we were talking about, this card exists. Oh no. There's also Binding Heal, there's also Renew. I assume Renew is still in. Oh man, that is a lot. Where is this thing? Yeah, so it's kind of specific. Even if you just have your hero power, you can play this on turn 6 and deal 2 damage AoE, which is already totally good. So this card is pretty bonkers, and yeah. But, you know. Yeah, it's good. It's never going to be that bad. Like, obviously, you probably don't want to like meme too hard. You might take like one Desperate Prayer, but like you wouldn't want to like pick every healing card just because you have this. But you really don't have to. Like, it's always just going to be fine with hero power, so it's a really good card. Next is Cargill Battlescar. Talking about those watch post cards. Summon a 5/5 lookout. To summon a 5/5, summon a 5/5 lookout for each watch post you summon this game. So, I mean, if you happen to have a million of these, I mean, you would have already won by turn 7 because this card would have probably won you the game already. But, I mean, in case it didn't, you just get a million 5/5s. So, you know, it's good. You're probably, I mean, unless you just again, you probably would only pick this if you happen to have been offered like 2 of these in draft already, and then maybe not even, I don't know. You probably won't play with this very much, but if you have a bunch of watch posts, then yeah, okay, sure. Moving on is Conviction. This is an interesting one. The Paladin rank spell. Give a random friendly minion +3 attack. And then when it upgrades at 5 and 10 mana, it goes to 2 random enemy minions and 3 random enemy minions. Or random friendly minions. Sorry. But, yeah. So, at rank 1, this card's pretty bad. At rank 2, it becomes pretty good at this point. Because if you only have, the fact that it's random doesn't matter if you're buffing all your minions, right? I think like the best way you would use this is you would just play this like on turn 7 with like Mage Scribe or something like that. So if you have one minion that's stuck on board, and then you can buff your Mage Scribe into a 7/9 while triggering it, and that seems like really good. The other best way to use this is to just have 3 minions on board that survive, and then you just deal 9 face damage, right? That would be the other really good way to use this. But yeah, and sometimes, you know, Blessing of Might was a card which honestly I never always felt playable. So sometimes it's just gonna be Blessing of Might even. So, you know, pretty flexible card. Buffs that only give attack are typically pretty weak, but this just gives so much attack that it seems like it should be good. So, especially if you can get the initiative out of it. And there's some holy synergies as well. And the last card on the list, I believe, Overlord Sourfang. Battle 7 mana 5/4. Resurrect 2 friendly frenzy minions. Deal 1 damage to all other minions. So this will, it resurrects them and then it deals to all other minions, which means every minion except itself, which would mean it would trigger the frenzies immediately. That seems... I have to go back and look at what those frenzies actually are. But I mean, they were pretty decent. Keyword. Oh, they've only announced this one. There are some neutral frenzies, so there's probably going to be more frenzies announced. So as is, we don't know exactly what they're going to do. I guess this would get like hyper buffed, right? Because if there's like 6 minions on board, this just goes to like a 7/3. So that actually is pretty good, but there'll probably be more. I would guess that there's going to be more frenzies. More frenzies there. Obviously, you need to have, like, it's a very specific synergy to have. You have to have drawn the minion and played it as well. So it may be a little too situational in general, but if you have the right deck for it, if you just happen to have a whole bunch of these, then, you know, you might be looking at this suddenly. The problem is that because it's only a 5/4, like, if you're summoning stuff like this too, your board is still gonna, like, it's still gonna get wiped by any AoE. This might be a little too situational, but, you know, it could be good. I believe that's the end of the list. I'm going to refresh just to see if there are any. Oh, there are 2 more cards here. I guess we'll talk about these 2 cards as well. Scab's Cutter Butter. 4 mana 3/3 combo. The next 2 cards you play this turn cost 3. What? Oh god. Oh no. You just get to dump your hand for free. Oh no. Oh no. It's a literal, it's a -2 mana 3/3. Oh, why? This is gonna be so good in Arena too, because you just tend to draft a whole bunch of like mid-range cards. Oh man, that's terrifying. Well, all right. Great. Yeah, it's a legendary, so you kind of need to have, you're gonna need to have card draw to like support this probably as well, but I mean that's really good. And here's the weapon people were talking about. Swine Tusk Shank. After you play Shadow Step it, oh my god. After you play a poison, gain +1 durability. So that's the weapon you guys were talking about. Good thing we refreshed the page. That's a really weak card, but yeah. And this works with leeching poison in wild, right? So interesting. That's gonna be crazy. But yeah, I don't know. This might actually be a little too... Obviously, if you had a whole bunch of the poisons... what are, like... Let's just pull up all the poison cards that you have. There are a handful of them. Yeah, Nitro Boost Poison, Deadly Poison, Paralytic Poison, another Deadly Poison, apparently. So there's 3 of them. It's gonna be a little... You need to get at least one. It's a card that's really bad unless you have 1. If you have 1, like if you just have this with Deadly Poison, it becomes a 3/3. It becomes a 4/3 weapon, which is pretty good, which is good. But after you play a poison, I don't think so. That would be funny if it did count with poison minions. I don't think so. But yeah. I think it's probably not... It's something you're going to get completely memed by sometimes. Like, I don't think you're going to be picking this all that often. Because, like, even, like, this card isn't really... This and Deadly Poison generally aren't cards I like to draft all that much. But maybe they're going to be cards you're going to be drafting a little more because of all this. But you need to have synergy. Otherwise, this card's kind of terrible. But, anyway, I guess that's going to be it for this review. Thanks a lot for hanging out, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Let me see. anything else we gotta go? If you let me know in the comment section what you guys think of any of these cards. We'll do another future review. I'm not sure if I'll do another one in the relatively near future, or if I'll wait until all the cards come out for the next one. I might just wait until I'll probably just wait until they're all announced and then do the rest of them then. If you want to see some of my other reviews in the core set as well, those are on my YouTube as well. But yeah, thanks all again. We'll see you guys next time.